Welcome back, everyone. It's Simply Bitcoin, the weekend edition. We break down the news from Twitter, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, and the websites by plebs. Speaking of plebs, joining us today, fellow toxic Bitcoiner and pleb hodling Eric. All right, we're diving into the numbers. Let's do it.
Number time! Number time is brought to you by Bitcoin 2022. It's going to be the largest Bitcoin conference ever, hosted in sunny Miami Beach, Florida. Get your tickets quickly before the prices go up. Naim Bukele, Michael Saylor, Adam Back. The speakers are going to be insane. Take advantage of the link down below for 10% off your tickets to Bitcoin 2022.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 721,809. The Bitcoin price, 40,340. Chain rewrite days, 740. Total public lightning capacity, that's a new all-time high, everyone. 3,411.53 BTC. Moscow time, 2479. Blocks to the halvening, 118,191 an hour. All new metric. The Samurai Whirlpool unspent capacity is 4,376.94. And for the people who don't know, Samurai Whirlpool is a mixing service or a privacy service, and the 4,376.94 BTC unspent capacity is what is currently in the pool. The numbers, Nico.
The numbers. Very nice, very nice. But yeah, dude, super bullish, good stats. We had a bit of a run up. Right, we had a bit of a run up from 36 to 40K. I think that was nice. I think everyone, you know, sighed some relief. But yeah, man, good stuff. None of this, the price movement isn't important if you're just staying humble and stacking sats and DCA, which we're huge advocates of this show. But today we have something special. It is the weekend edition. Why not? Phil has some hopium for you guys. He has some data on the numbers. Yeah, you do, bro. You have...
I didn't find the tweet.
Oh, fucking A. All right, guys. Phil didn't save the tweet, so we had to put it together ourselves. It's really not that difficult, and we're not going to speculate on the future. We're going to tell you. But just looking at some data, right, we have been in a downtrend. That's just the reality of the situation. We've been essentially going down since November 21st. That's when we hit the all-time high. But check this out. Today, when we wicked to 40K, we did wick like crazy over that fucking downtrend line, right? And that's just the reality of the situation. And it's been following that line, and we did wick above it. Now, the big question, the million-dollar question is, was that just a wick up, or is that sustainable? Who knows? It doesn't matter, though, if you've been dollar cost averaging, which is what we advocate on this show. But I think that this year, especially if you look at the hash rate, which continues to hit all-time high, and then you look at that, dude, I have a feeling that this year is going to be good for the Kaka fiat price. And it's just, my gut is telling me, but I also might be completely fucking wrong. Phil?
The tweet that I saw, which I can't find, indicated, I'm still going to go look for it, because hopefully we could add it to the notes, but it indicated that we broke the 88-day downtrend. Okay, now, again, like you said, you know, we're not speculating, but at the same time, that's a strong signal right at the beginning of February, right? We closed out the January monthly candle down, and this is kind of some welcome relief, right? If you think about it like a pressure valve, we just kind of released some steam. So to Nico's point, yeah, we definitely could just kind of pop up and then continue to trend down, you know, as we start to make a base, but at the end of the day, this is all about stacking, and it's about changing the world, and it's about making sure that the base layer of money is something that everybody can partake in.
Absolutely. The signal would be if Bitcoin sustains these levels. If it does,
yes,
that is extremely bullish. That means we broke out of the downtrend completely, and you know, who knows the future, but that would be very promising, or the exact opposite could happen. And if we break down, like if we continue to go down after that, that means that nothing was broken. But let's see what happens. And again, dude, I'm looking at the hash rate. I'm not really looking at this. I never draw these lines. As you can see, my trading view was completely virgin, nothing there. I drew it because Phil fucked up, but hey, you know, This is a Saturday Hopium special. We don't do this very often. We're not going to do this for a very long time. But anyways, hodling Eric, You look like a Bitcoiner, so I don't think you draw lines either.
Thanks, man. No, I do not draw lines. I do also ignore the price for the signal.
So we gotta ask you this, because we've been asking everybody that comes on the show. Were you holding out for 100K? Did you think that we were getting that this year, even though I know you don't look at the price?
Yes, I was definitely affected. I say, like, by the hopium. You know, like I don't know, like before our last conference, you know, 2021, people everywhere, like Metadel, of course, Plan B anyway. Like everybody was pretty positive. You know, it just happens, the hot hand fallacy. You know, you make one basket, two baskets, you just assume it's going to go up forever. Just this, you know, issue with humans and exponentials, I guess.
So let me ask you this. What do you think caused the fact that we did not hit that number?
Well, I do believe the Chinese ban had something to do with it. Like, it's just what happened, right? Like, we could have been going higher if the hash rate would have been like just increasing from this point, you know, at the inflection point when we actually went down. Like, if you look at the hash rate, just like Nico said, I think you see pretty well like where the China ban was like setting in, and then where the miners picked up again. And, you know, if you ignore this little crash in the middle, it's just now we are going up after 180 exahash. Now we got like 240, depending on which source you do, right? Like, well, the Coin Wars was at around 240 exahash, all-time high, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely crushing it. And again, like we always say on the show, I mean, it's not really a theory. I mean, theoretically, the higher the hash rate, the higher Bitcoin becomes to computationally attack. That means the higher the value proposition, right? That's the way that I'm looking at it. If the hash rate was going down and we were doing these things with the, you know, the charts and whatever, like, I would say, hey, you know, this doesn't look good in the short term for Bitcoin. But when I see the hash rate continuing to break all-time high, like nothing's there, right, then that tells me that the future looks bright. And that's not only me saying that. You have the president of fucking El Salvador also calling for 100K Bitcoin in 2022. So yeah, look, I'm extremely bullish for this year. You know, I don't have my hopes up for the Kaka Fiat price because I think that's bad energy to hold in. But I think that, you know, all the fundamentals are there, right? The question that you have to ask yourself, guys, is this, right? When Bitcoin hit 30K last year, right? Did Bitcoin's fundamentals get stronger or weaker, right? MicroStrategy has stacked a lot more Bitcoin. You have a nation state stacking a lot more Bitcoin. So think about it this way. If the fundamentals were weaker when Bitcoin was at 30K and now Bitcoin, it hit at 33 bottom, think about it. This is a hell of a fucking discount. That's the way that I'm looking at it, right? So, but again, you know, in the short term, no one can tell you where the price is going. No one. I don't care who you are. So the best way that you protect yourself from that is just DCA. You know, have a low time preference. You know, fiat mine like crazy, or if you work in Bitcoin, good for you. Work in Bitcoin, get more Bitcoin. And yeah, man, and you know, to the fucking moon. We just don't know when to the fucking moon. But anyways, Phil, it's time for the Daily Fail. The Daily Fail is brought to you by Amber App. Check them out, amber.app. It is the easiest way to buy Bitcoin. It's a Bitcoin stacking app by actual toxic Bitcoiners. The link is down below. Amber, the smart way to stack sats. So, got two fails today. We're going to start off with a light one first. You know, some NFT nonsense, some fake decentralization nonsense. They love the word decentralization, right? They'd love to throw around the DAO. Let's take a look at this tweet from CoinJoin Day. Decentralized Autonomous Organization, my ass. LMAO. And what's he talking about? He is talking about this tweet right here. This DAO is going to be managed now by me directly. The circus needs to stop now, and we need to gather with serious proposals and structure to move forward. That doesn't sound decentralized at all. That's just ridiculous nonsense. Anyways, worth a laugh. Why not? Okay, let's dive into the... We're gonna dive into this is the real story, the real fail. We got tagged multiple times to talk about this.
So we are going to review this Solana wormhole hack. Now, don't get me wrong, but the last place I want to put my money is into something called a wormhole, okay? And again, right? To Nico's point, you know, with the great names, they have wonderful names, but sometimes you gotta wonder why they chose that name. Maybe it means something, right? Let's dive into this. This is a tweet thread by Kelvin Fichter, who did some good sleuthing, shitcoiner, but hey, great sleuthing, and gonna help us explain what the hell happened here. And I just want to point out, we mentioned,
what does that mean, sleuthing?
Oh, sleuthing, like investigation. Yeah, like he did the investigation. But thank you, by the way. I don't even realize sometimes when I use these like old people words, you know, and it's like nobody knows what the hell that means, you know, so I appreciate that. You know, we've mentioned in the past on these fails, right, that there's these bridges, right? And this is where the money disappears, in these bridges. I guess that's where the wormholes are. Anyways, let's dive into it because this is another one of these stories with a bridge. All right, figured out the Solana wormhole bridge hack. $300 million worth of ETH drained out of the wormhole bridge on ETH. Here's how it happened. Here's the transaction which finalized the majority of the exploit. 80k ETH pulled out of the wormhole contract on Ethereum in a single transaction. Although it's dramatic, this transaction is just the very end of an interesting series of events. I had to start working my way backwards to figure out how this was even possible. Wormhole is a bridge. Basically, a way to move shitcoin assets between different blockchains. Specifically, Wormhole has a set of guardians, in brackets, centralized authorities, that sign off on transfers between chains. It's a little more complicated than that in practice, but that's the general idea. The transaction that pulled out 80k ETH was actually the attacker transferring 80k ETH from Solana to Ethereum. The Wormhole Guardians had somehow signed off on this 80k ETH transfer as if it were 100% legit. How was that possible? The first breakthrough came from this transaction on Solana, which somehow minted 120k Wormhole ETH out of nowhere. The attacker was able to mint Wormhole ETH on Solana, so they were able to correctly withdraw it back to Ethereum. Okay, so just to try to make it simple, they created a whole bunch of fake tokens on Solana and then withdrew them back to Ethereum, which made them real. Made them into real ETH. Anyways, now we just need to figure out how the attacker was able to mint these Wormhole ETH on Solana, right? How were they able to create all of this and then move it? The next interesting piece of information is this. Solana transaction that came right before the 120k ETH one, where 0.1 Wormhole ETH was minted on Solana. If we take a look at the attacker's transaction history on Ethereum, we end up seeing that the attacker did make a deposit of 0.1 ETH into Solana from Ethereum. Of course, the attacker definitely did not make 120k ETH deposit into Wormhole on Ethereum, but there's something interesting about this deposit. It definitely has something to do with the attack, but what? All right, here's where we start getting into the weeds of Solana. This is the first time I've ever looked at Solana contracts, so it took me a while to get my bearings, but I think I finally got what's going on. The transaction that minted Wormhole ETH on Solana were triggering this Wormhole function complete wrapped. Now, I'm going to caveat, I'm not going to go through and start showing you like the actual transaction data or anything like that. We're going to dive into a bit of technical, the technical weeds, but you'll understand the overall story at the end with the summary, okay? If you don't already understand what has happened. Anyways, one of the parameters that this function takes is a transfer message, basically a message signed by the guardians that says which token to mint and how much. So it's interesting, these decentralized things go and ask these centralized entities. Solana is kind of weird. So these parameters are actually smart contracts themselves. But the important thing is how these transfer messages contracts get created. Here's the transaction that made the 0.1 ETH transfer message. The transfer message contract is created by triggering a function called post_VAA. It doesn't really matter if you understand the fancy code. The most important thing here is that post VAA checks if the message is valid by checking the signatures from the Guardians. That part seems reasonable enough, but it's this signature checking step that broke everything. This is how the hack was capable. Post VAA doesn't actually check the signatures. Instead, in typical Solana fashion, there's another smart contract which gets created by calling the verify signature function. So it's interesting, right? Instead of calling all these functions, what they're doing is that they're creating contracts to automate all of this, which means if you put something in there that doesn't work or doesn't make sense, it just goes right through. Anyways, let's continue on. One of the inputs to the verify signatures function is a Solana built-in system program, which contains various utilities the contract can use. Within verify signatures, the wormhole program attempts to check that the thing that happened right before this function was triggered was that the SECP256K1 signature verification function was executed. Like I said, gonna end up going into some technical jargon, but don't worry. This verification function is a built-in tool that's supposed to verify that the given signatures are correct. So the signature verification has been outsourced to this program, but here's where the bug comes in. The wormhole contracts used the function load instruction at to check the SECP256K1 function was called first. The load instruction at function was deprecated, meaning not used anymore. So it was deprecated relatively recently because it does not check that it's executing against the actual system address. That's right, they had a piece of code out there that was literally just validating stuff that didn't even exist. This also kind of brings up the question as to how many other people pulled shit and nobody even knows about it. Okay? This is just the person that got caught. Anyway, or I should say, this was just the greediest one, right? Anyways, you're supposed to provide the system address as the program you're executing here. Here's the system address being used as the input for the verify signatures for the legit deposit of 0.1 ETH. But here's the verify underscore signatures transaction for the fake deposit of 120k ETH. That's not the system address. Using this fake system program, the attacker could effectively lie about the fact that the signature check program was executed. The signatures weren't being checked at all. After that point, it was game over. The attacker made it look like the Guardians had signed off on 120k ETH deposit into Wormhole on Solana, even though they hadn't. All the attacker needed to do now was to make their play money real by withdrawing it back to Ethereum. And one withdrawal of 80k ETH plus 10k ETH later, everything in the bridge on Ethereum, everything was gone. Wormhole reports that the exploit has been patched. Now this is interesting. A commit was made 9 hours ago replacing usage of load instructions at with load instructions at checked, which actually confirms the program being executed is the system program. It's interesting that this commit was made 9 hours ago and the exploit happened a few hours after that. Possible that an attacker was keeping an eye on the repository and looking out for suspicious commits. So, wow, okay? Essentially, they were, and I've seen this done before in test programs, okay, where essentially what happens is that you have a simulator, right? Essentially simulating activity, simulating a proof, or simulating a validation, and based off of that, the program that you're running will continue on as though everything was working fine. And essentially, that piece of code that wasn't calling anything was just saying yes to everything that they were trying to create on that blockchain. That is dangerous as hell. And it's kind of interesting, though, the way it was worded, right? That it became real once it was moved back to ETH. It's delusional.
Man, look.
I know, that was a tough one.
No. I'm not even going to pretend to understand what all that means, but I think that conceptually, on a basic level is what I want everybody to focus on, especially if you're like me and that all sounded like Chinese. Look, on a very basic level, the fact that there's someone that has that much power, right? Think about it. It's one person making that, and it gives that person the capability to just extract wealth, right? Steal it, essentially, just like that. first of all, this proves that it's not decentralized. Just like in the beginning where that screenshot that you showed, that guy's like, I'm taking over the DAO, don't worry. It's paradoxical, because if it was a DAO, he wouldn't be able to do that. Same with this, right? It's these people, these shitcoiners, these DeFi people would like you to believe that what they're doing is decentralized. But time and time again, we show the receipts. With this, this one's catastrophic. How much money was this, Phil? It was,
oh my gosh,
it was a ridiculous amount.
Hold on, I gotta go all the way. I gotta go all the way back up for this one.
Yeah,
but yeah, $300 million worth of ETH.
$300 million worth of ETH. So again, like, the fact that you're even able to do this, the fact that there's an exploit like that, proves that it's not decentralized. That is not the future of finance. And like we've focused so many times on this show. Look, if that could be compromised by a black hat hacker, you could have, without a shadow of a doubt, it could also be compromised by the state, by a government. Okay, and that's the point. And if you compare that to Bitcoin, right, on the other side, it doesn't happen. You either have your private keys or you don't. Are you the only owner of those private keys? If you are, right, you have nothing to worry about. So again, like, this is all, like, this is why we advocate for Bitcoin only. Look, if you wanted to play around with the tech, right, which is what we always talk about, play around with it. But it's nowhere to store value. It's nowhere to store wealth, right? And clearly, a lot of these people, unfortunately, that's a lot of money, are learning the hard way, right? They were marketed something, but in reality, it was a whole lot different. And again, why is that? Because the person who controls the smart contract is essentially God, right? And that's exactly what happened there. And there are very few people on the face of the earth that could read and properly interpret that smart contract to see if there's any bugs. But you know how scary that is? If there's a bug, you're fucked. You know, like, that is absolutely scary. That is absolutely terrifying. And dude, look, again, if this isn't the greatest marketing campaign for Bitcoin, I don't know what is. Why is this always happening in DeFi? Why are the numbers keep getting bigger? Why do the exploits keep getting worse? You have something that's been around for a couple years now. Even with auditing companies, they still don't catch all the bugs. And it's like, I love how the developers say, it's patched now, $320 million later. Like, what a freaking joke, dude. You can't run an economy on that shit.
Here,
like,
before you continue, I just wanted to show you this. Okay, look, somebody
this
took
a great meme. This should have been in the meme review, Phil.
No, it shouldn't. It's a great way to top that fail off. Look at that, the wormhole. Look, rug pull protocol powering the seamless disappearance of value and information across 7 VCs with just one dev. That's amazing. Sorry, continue.
No, it
was to your point.
Dude, you put a cherry on top. Now we're going to pass it on to Eric. Eric, what are your thoughts on this? As a humble pleb, you're watching this madness. You're watching this house of cards burn to the ground. What are your thoughts?
Waste of human resources. It's just so annoying to see, like, all this time going down the drain, you know, like, just like fueled by buzzwords and under education, basically. You know, all this time could be invested laser focused on Bitcoin. And who knows where we would be right now, you know? I mean, like, and then to your point, like, how often have Ether coins, tokens, however you want to call these shitcoins, been hacked, you know? I mean, we're not talking about an exchange that has been hacked and then some people stealing keys that the exchange is managing and stuff, you know? It's the token, it's the coin itself, you know? Like you said, there's no way that can be the base of society or human prosperity.
Absolutely not. It's a total grift, right? And this is what we always say on the show. All of these shitcoins, they're designed specifically to extract your Bitcoin from you, right? And then the devs enrich themselves, dumping bags on you, whether that's XRP, whether that's Ethereum, right? It came out that the Ethereum Foundation dumped at the top, right? At the top of the last previous week, the Ethereum Foundation dumped everything. Why is that happening? Why is that happening in Ethereum? Why is that happening with XRP? Well, it's simple. There's a group of humans that control the monetary policy. They control the supply. And guess what? They're doing what the Fed is doing. It's the same shit. They're dumping shit, debasing your wealth, right? Stealing from you, literally. And yeah, enriching themselves in the process. That is some fiat cuck mentality. And in Bitcoin, you get to say no to that, right? So it's just, man. What a total fuck up. But anyways, Phil, it's time for the Daily Meme Review. The Daily Meme Review is brought to you by Citadel 21. It's the best Bitcoin cultural zine. It's stories, comics, articles by toxic Bitcoiners. This is a new cover, volume 10, and they're scarce. There's only 1,000 copies made per volume. Get your print of Citadel 21 today. All right, everybody. First meme for today is brought to us by Alex Kruger. Average NFT buyer be like, test your stupidity, insert $100. Absolutely hilarious. Spot on, Alex. Next one by Brad Chadsworth. My IRS agent, this is your final warning. You haven't paid taxes on your Bitcoin income in years, and we could see you're active in the U.S. Me at a rave in El Salvador after swallowing my open dime and giving a homeless kid my laptop. Oh man. Okay, we're not pay your taxes, guys. We're not advocating for that. It's just
a funny meme.
It's a funny meme. That's all it is. Okay. Next one by Bitcoin comedian, right? Hard to swallow pills. You knew about Bitcoin in 2011 and couldn't comprehend its benefits. You own stupidity is why you're so poor. Okay. All right.
Well done.
Hardcore meme. Definitely.
It's a life lesson.
It's a hardcore one. All right. By Cedric, a friend of the show. I'm old enough to remember when Bitcoin went from 3,800 to 69,000 in just 8 months. 100K Bitcoin. 100K Bitcoin objects and mirror are closer than they appear. Oh, look at you, Cedric. He's stepping up his memeing game. And this is a reminder for everyone because it's hard to zoom out when you're in the flux. Your emotions get, caught up in it, right? We had, I think the whole community had expectations for 100K Bitcoin before the Chinese communists ruined those dreams like communists always do. And I think it's important to zoom out when these things happen. This was Bitcoin falls below the $400 mark, down more than 60% from its all-time high, and the year was 2014. This was Bitcoin falls further below 4,000, crypto continues plunge, and this was 2018. And then in 2022, Bitcoin briefly tumbles below 40,000 to its lowest since September as investors shed risk. January 10th, 2022. And this is why legacy mainstream media, they're not even mainstream media anymore. You can't even call them that. Legacy corporate media fucking sucks. It's like they're just in it for the clicks. They're in it for like those short things like, the world's going to burn down and this is why you have to donate money and click us and tune into CNN and all that garbage. But yeah, man, it's fucking stupid, dude. That left a bad taste in my mouth. But who fucking reads these things? They're intentionally making people poor. Like, if they were accurately reporting that about crypto, I would say totally different. But the fact that they're saying about Bitcoin, they've been wrong consistently for 10 years. Like, but this time it's different. This time it's really dead. Like, shut the fuck up. Anyways, for that, I'm going to give it a bag of plantain chips. Plantain chips are the key. They're gluten-free. They don't have trans fat. And check this out. They're certified kosher. Dank. Phil?
Nice. Very nice scores. Yeah, that's... Oh, gosh. Okay. I had to go digging for a proper score for this, right? Because that mainstream media one, I mean, that is hilarious stuff.
What did you just say? What did you just say, Phil? What did you call them? What did you call them?
Oh, I'm sorry. The corporate-owned media. My bad. You see, it's brainwashing. I'm being brainwashed. Okay, and you know what? This is the fitting score for the brainwashing.
Oh,
that's right. It's an edition 1 Illuminatus comic. If you know, you know.
That is nice. That is nice. Anyways, Eric, what would you give those memes?
I gotta say, my favorite was like probably Mark Zuckerberg, like dancing
at the rave, like
deliriously, like he is. Yeah, I got this like binary eagle to fuel the conversation about like sats and bits. This is 1 million sats or 1 Bitcoin cent.
Oh, that is
wow! I've never seen that before.
Oh, you didn't? Like,
yeah, very cool. Wow,
it's a worthless chunk of silver with 1 million sats.
Anyways, guys, we want to know if you agree with our scores, you disagree. Let us know down in the comment section. And of course, make sure to join our Telegram group, link us some Bitcoin memes to review, and subscribe to us on alternative video platforms like rumble.com and our personal favorite, bitcointv.com. They don't censor there because it's Bitcoin TV.
What I was going to say to you before was, because when you asked, like, who watches this? Who reads this? I was going to tell you, my parents. This is what I hear when I talk to my father. Like, when I'm going to call him tonight, it's like, Phil, I read a very interesting article. You know, Bitcoin's bad for the environment. Did you know? And I'm like, oh, God.
It goes to, like, think about how brainwashed people were, because the state has totally compromised these institutions. Remember back in 2001, weapons of mass destruction, and then right now we're living through the disintermediation of information, and we're about to enter next 10 years the disintermediation of money. It takes the state's power completely, dude, and it's going to be so chaotic. That's what we're living through. And yeah, man, I feel bad for the boomers, bro. They were essentially mind controlled on a mass level. Like, you think that the Soviet, communist propaganda was bad? Like, dude, this country was just as bad too, dude. Like, they used the media machine, right? They'd use the divide. Oh, it's the Democrats. Oh, it's the Republicans. Like, it's all bullshit. It was literally just one thing. Why do you think they're freaking out so much about Joe Rogan? Why? Why are they trying to censor this guy? Because he's not playing along with the official narrative. Absolutely bonkers. But anyways, Phil, it's time for the Daily News. The Daily News is brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. They make the best 3D printed Bitcoin merch, like the 3D printed Bitcoin Honey Badger, or the 3D printed Bitcoin Art Grenade. Also opens up, you put your favorite hardware wallet in there. Really cool stuff. And you can take advantage of the link down below for 5% off CryptoCloaks.com. All right, so finally, some good news. I mean, it's good news for ants. I'll say that. But anyways, check out this message or this announcement by U.S. Congresswoman Susan DeBlaine, right? This is a pretty big deal in my opinion, and I'll tell you why it's a pretty big deal in a second. The Virtual Currency Tax Fairness Act would exempt personal transactions made with virtual currency when the gains are 200 or less. Antiquated regulations around virtual currency do not take into account its potential for use in our daily lives, instead treating it more like a stock or ETF. However, virtual currency has evolved rapidly in the past few years. With more opportunities to use in our daily lives, the U.S. must stay on top of these changes and ensure that our tax code will evolve with use of virtual currency. The Common Sense Bill cuts the red tape and opens the door to further innovations and ultimately growing our digital economy. Virtual currency is reshaping our everyday lives, and the United States needs to recognize this and work to treat these currencies fairly in our tax code. Crazy. While Bitcoin and other shitcoins are technologically innovative payment methods, today you have to keep track of and report every transactions you make using them, whether it's a $10,000 investment trade or whether you're buying a 99-cent song online or latte at a cafe. This obviously creates friction and puts shitcoins at a disadvantage relative to other digital payment methods. As the use of virtual currencies for retail payments increase, it's important that Americans are able to easily understand their tax obligations by providing an exemption for small everyday purchases. The Virtual Currency Tax Fairness Act would ease the burden for consumers. We're proud to support the bill's reintroduction in the 117th Congress. So, again, you look at this and you're like, that's noise, $200, what the fuck? But again, this is a foot in the door. Right, and essentially it's setting a precedent, right? Because think about it, unless you're using another fiat currency, then you don't essentially, if you're using a euro or something to buy whatever, you don't have to pay capital gains tax on that. But here's the kicker. Bitcoin is designed to go up forever, and fiat currencies are designed to go down forever. So if you think about it, how that works right now is essentially Bitcoin is being taxed as if it's some asset accruing value. But El Salvador just declared it a legal tender. So even if it accrues value, even if it goes up, in El Salvador, when you spend that Bitcoin, you're not being taxed for that. In the US, they just started a precedent saying, hey, unless you have a gain of more than $200 or more, now you don't have to pay capital gains tax on that if it's less than a $200 gain. That is absolutely huge because it sets a precedent. It sets a precedent, and again, I suspect that $200 number is so low because they definitely got pressure from the Treasury, because it's only a matter of time before the genie comes out of the bottle. Why is it that I have to pay tax? Again, pay your taxes, follow the law, color in between the lines, right? But at the same time, why is it that we have to pay taxes on holding a currency? Think about that. Think about that for a second. Right? In El Salvador, it's not the case. In El Salvador, you could buy something and you buy it. You're not paying taxes on that. You're buying something, right? In the US, essentially how it's working is if your crypto, if your Bitcoin goes up in value, right, you essentially have to do a calculation for capital gains tax. So think about it. When one country is treated like a currency, the thing is, our brains have such a hard time processing that is because we've been using fiat money that's designed to go down ever so slightly to make sure that you don't really notice, but it's literally, it doesn't gain in value, right? We're not compensated for that loss of purchasing power or whatever. Bitcoin throws a fucking wrench into that, saying not only does it not lose value over time, it actually goes up in value over time. So again, look, clearly there's pressure. Clearly there's pressure on legislators. But at the same time, I'm sure there's pressure from the federal government saying, hey, no. Because think about it, Phil, the gig would be up. The gig would be up because people would just be like, yo, I'm just going to hold Bitcoin. We're like, what? Why am I going to fucking, like, what the fuck is this? It's just like, I have to pay capital gains as it relates to dollars. I have to, every time I spend my Bitcoin, I have to pay up to 20%. Like, what the fuck is going on there? Right?
Yeah.
Some weird questions. Anyways, what do you think, Phil?
I feel like we're in a bit of a tug of war scenario, right? Where it's like, okay, like you just said, we got our foot in the door. But at the same time, I think that this foot in the door is going to prompt a lot of discussion, and I think it's going to be a lot of uncomfortable discussion because it really has to make people redefine not just Bitcoin, but I think it's going to make people redefine because Bitcoin is quote unquote, it's a hybrid asset. It provides many functions. You can't tax it like an investment. Like it doesn't work. So that brings in the definitions into question, right? And let's be honest, right? This stuff is hard work. It's hard work to come to these agreements. It's difficult, especially with all of the incentives. So I do feel that we're in for an uphill battle, but this does make me somewhat hopeful.
It sets a precedent and it puts a foot in the door because now how that shit works is essentially, if you were to buy something with Bitcoin in the United States, you have to pay capital gains tax on that, period. Right? Yeah. You have to,
which is completely insane.
You have to do the math and be like, how much did I gain in value in this? How much do I owe the IRS?
Who's doing that, right?
The bill is what you're supposed to do. The bill is essentially saying, hey, if it's up to, if it's less than a $200 capital gain, then hey, don't worry about it. If this passes, of course, right? So I think it sets the precedent. And again, it makes the hole's just going to get bigger over time. And then it's going to lead to the inevitable discussion. Wait a second. Why am I paying capital gains on holding a currency? What is going on here? Mm-hmm. And I think that discussion is, dude, they're going to have such a hard time explaining that. They're going to have such a hard time explaining that. I think they thought they had this on lock so well. And this thing wasn't going to come out of nowhere. And it just came out of nowhere. And they can't stop it because it's decentralized. Dude, it kind of exposes the fraud that is fiat. It exposes the fraud that they've been committing on us, making us use this money by decree. And then that money is literally designed to go down in value forever. And we're just expected to be okay with it. Like, a lot of questions this is going to inevitably lead to.
Think about this, right? The kind of conversation that they're going to have, right, to your point, is that they are going to have to tell people that the reason why they have to pay they pay taxes on Bitcoin, okay? The reason why they have to pay those capital gains taxes is because the money that they created was never meant to go up in value. And that, like you said, it tips their hat, right? At that point, the emperor, we already know the emperor wears no clothes, right? But I feel as though more people need to see that the emperor wears no clothes.
Absolutely.
But you don't want to look at him naked, though. You definitely don't want to see him naked. But he is.
Anyways, Eric, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's interesting.
You live in I'm assuming you live in Europe, right? It's essentially same thing, right? You know, the governments over there are a lot more tax aggressive than they are in the US.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's very interesting in general, like that maybe the, you know, Bitcoin was treated like in this last narrative cycle as a store of value, right? I think it's interesting to see they now talk about it and you know, like as a medium of exchange, talking about like everyday transfers for like buying a coffee and all that. So I think it's going to be really interesting, like Phil also said, especially like when something comes up like, I don't know, taxation according to how you utilize your Bitcoin or how you utilize the technology, maybe, you know, like it's a lot of interesting stuff. But I think the most interesting thing is talking about it as a medium of exchange. You know, I would like to hear Mikey Saylor ever like talk about this, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. It's
We're working on it.
Let's see, dude. It's definitely an uphill battle. But anyways, I wanted to pivot to something which, you know, I wanted to address some FUD, right? So let's go down this. We've covered Paul Krugman, right? And, you know, this is the infamous guy that said that the internet was not going to amount to anything in the 90s. But somehow this dude still has a job. And somehow he's an economist as well. Anyways. At sufficiently high levels of fraudulence, all forms of turpitude become a single unified force. And of course, he is essentially retweeting Bloomberg article, Texas Governor Abbott turns to Bitcoin miners to bolster the grid and his re-election. So he's essentially trashing this idea that Abbott had, which was, hey, listen, Bitcoin mining is actually going to help the grid. And I'll get to why that is the case in a second, right? And then he goes on to claim, this is a really interesting article that we covered when it came out, also by Paul Krugman, Guns, Germs, Bitcoin, and the Antisocial Right, January 31st, 2022. And he goes on to say, in February 2021, a deep freeze caused widespread power outages in Texas, leaving about 10 million Texans without electricity, in many cases for days, hundreds died. And for the most part, it still hasn't. So far, no winterization requirements have been placed on the politically powerful gas sector. Instead, Governor Abbott is hoping to secure the power grid by encouraging Bitcoin mining. This would supposedly reduce the risk of outages because Bitcoin's huge electricity consumption would eventually expand the state's generation capacity. Now, I'm going to highlight this part because it's really important. This would supposedly reduce the risk of outages. Yes, that's as crazy as it sounds, but it fits a pattern when confronted with problems that could easily be alleviated through cooperative action. The radical right-wingers who have taken over the Republican Party often turn instead to bizarre non-solutions that appeal to their antisocial ideology. I'll explain why I use that word in a minute. But anyways, so just remember that part because I think it's really important. He goes on to say, what about Bitcoin? I don't think it's even worth trying to make sense of Abbott's tortured logic, why he imagines that promoting an environmentally destructive energy hogging industry would somehow make his electricity supply more reliable. Okay, so you heard all those thoughts by Paul Krugman, and this came out in January 31st, 2022. This came out February 3rd, 2022. Bitcoin miners are helping the Texas grid brace for winter storm impact.
Since Tuesday, crypto miners across the state have been shutting off their machines in order to ease the burden on ERCOT, which is the name of the Texas power grid. The chief concern here is that, we might see a repeat of what happened in February of last year when 10 million Texans lost power. To try to prevent that from happening, Riot Blockchain has already cut their power consumption by around 99%. And I've heard from multiple other Texas miners that, they're doing the same thing. Some plan to react in real time, meaning that if ERCOT tells them to power down, they will cut off their machines within minutes. This is a major test for the industry to see if the narrative that Bitcoin miners are actually good for stabilizing the grid is true. And so far, it does appear to be working.
Oh, wait. Oh. Hold on a second. What? But how's that possible? What was it that you were saying, Paul Krugman? Wait, I thought he was saying the exact opposite. Anyways, I think he was saying we need more government intervention to do what we want to do. But it looks like this is working without government intervention. How weird is that? Anyways, several other
crazy right-wing stuff, Nico.
Yeah, it's crazy right-wing stuff apparently. Several other crypto miners across Texas have followed suit involuntarily curtailing energy consumption in the run-up to the Arctic blast. So what Paul Krugman would like to do is by force intervention. If you don't follow it, we're going to fuck you over. It looks like the free market on its own shut down those Bitcoin miners. Why? Because they're following their own incentives to do that. Anyways, the article goes on to say, to run smoothly, so here's the short name, Electric Reliability Council of Texas, and here's the short name, to run smoothly, the ERCOT requires a perfect balance between supply and demand. Having too much power and not enough buyers is just as bad as everyone wanting to fire up their air conditioning units on the same day in July. So this is something that Paul Krugman and a lot of people that are bashing on Bitcoin's energy usage don't understand. Energy production, you can't store that energy. So essentially what energy producers have to do now is they have to guess how much demand is needed on a given day, right? Because if they make too much, that's expensive. If they make too little, that's also expensive. So they have to balance it. Bitcoin provides that balance because it's a consistent buyer of energy, which, according to this article, in which we've also been advocating on this show, they could turn off at a moment's notice, and all of that extra energy could be diverted to, in this case, to heat Texans' homes. For years, ERCOT has struggled with fluctuating energy prices and sporadic service, which is why it strikes deals with flexible energy buyers like crypto miners. Through established demand response programs, ERCOT will actually pay major industrial users to cut power. Bitcoin miners specifically, and demand response more generally, are a powerful tool in the toolbox for grid management. The point is, right, is that for somehow, some type of cosmic justice, Paul Krugman was literally proved wrong 3 days later, right? He was advocating for a hands-on approach. He was advocating for government intervention. He was saying it's for the social good. All of this bullshit, called Bitcoiners right-wingers, which we've debunked so many times on the show. In fact, we've dedicated 2 episodes to, you know, the progressive Bitcoiners, right? Again, it's fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit, and I just love how he got debunked not literally 3 days later, proving that, look, as soon as Texans needed some extra energy because they needed to heat their homes because of this crazy Arctic storm, guess what? Bitcoin miners, again, they fucking came to the rescue. They shut off. Texas has all this extra energy, which they don't have. The Texas grid doesn't have to guess how much extra energy they need, because there's always a buyer of last resort, and those are the Bitcoin miners. So again, you have someone talking in theory, bashing, and then you have the actual reality of the situation. The actual reality of the situation is the exact opposite of what is happening. So again, dude, like, I just wanted to dismantle that because, dude, these hit pieces on New York Times, bro, like, they're fucking getting more intense, man. What are your thoughts, Phil?
Oh man, yeah, this is total nonsense. And actually, while you were reading that, I didn't even know that Paul Krugman put that out. So thank you very much for going through that. It just got me thinking, right? So, okay, let's play this out. We have something like Bitcoin that requires a lot of energy. So what is that going to incentivize people to do? It's going to incentivize people, corporations, to figure out how to make that as efficient as possible, how to make it as cheap as possible. Now, let's take the other side of the coin, right? Where we produce all kinds of low quality products and devices which are low energy. What are the incentives that we have in order to figure out, in order to innovate, how to be more efficient? We have none. The only incentive that we have is to continue to learn how to produce more low energy, low quality crap. I mean, it's really not that tough to figure out. Okay, that's why, you know, necessity is the mother of all invention. So if all of our stuff barely uses, quote unquote, barely uses any energy, everything is low energy, everything is cheap garbage, everything is sludge, we have no necessity there. We're not being prodded to truly innovate. to actually, you know, to actually become better civilizations. This is, anyways, this is psychotic nonsense from a closed system.
That's the scam, right? The scam, what they would like you to believe is that the human race would be better off if we used less energy. Now, before Bitcoin, right, the thing is that perhaps you could have made that argument. But after Bitcoin, right, and Bitcoin essentially becomes the buyer of last resort, right? It's going to buy all of that excess energy, all of that energy that was made, quote unquote, to waste. Then that argument isn't valid anymore. Because now, even if you make more energy, right, before, right, so the world consumes about I don't know how to say the crazy whatever, but I'll pull up the graphic from Greg's video. But yeah, look, the world consumes, or the world produces a lot more energy than what it consumes, right? Mm-hmm. Bitcoin essentially gives that energy, that excess energy that was produced, value, right? So now as a human race, we don't have an excuse but essentially to make all the energy producing more efficient, because if it isn't efficient, then it's essentially wasted Bitcoin. It's a wasted Satoshis. So now we don't have a reason as to why to curtail our energy use. There's no reason as to why not do it. If it gains monetary value, and it also helps Bitcoin, which means that it helps literally millions, if not billions of people that don't have access to uncorruptible money. We have the examples from Afghanistan, right? Literally, the U.S. cut Afghanistan off from the financial system. We have examples in Cuba. We have examples in Turkey that people are actively using Bitcoin to protect themselves from their own government debasing their currency, or potentially their own government trying to seize their wealth. Bitcoin actually helps them. So if you're against that, you're anti-human. When I see Paul Krugman say those things, when I see Elizabeth Warren say those things, they don't mention any of that. So I hope Bitcoin continues to use more and more and more energy, because that to me means that Bitcoin is more and more uncorruptible. So I hope it keeps using it forever. And you know what? I think that it's going to better the world, because it's going to make energy producers even more efficient, meaning that any excess energy isn't actually going to go to the waste. And today, that energy is literally going to waste. So it's like, dude, it's a tricky way to look at it, because I think we've been essentially brainwashed for so long, Phil, into thinking, hey, use less energy, fix the planet. My argument is, and again, if you look at human history, the more energy the human race actually manages to capture, the more prosperous the human race becomes. So my argument to this, Phil, is I hope, right, humanity ends up being able to use more and more energy, because the prosperity of everyone, including very poor people, goes up, right? So again, it's a question of unlearning things and just Bitcoin doing its thing. And I really think, Phil, that Bitcoin, because it consumes that excess energy, is going to take us to the next step in terms of human civilization. Anyways, Eric, what are your thoughts on all this?
I totally agree, man, with everything you both just said. I think it's very important for us humans to understand energy from a human flourishing perspective and point of view. Like Alex Epstein always said, I don't know if you know, moral case for fossil fuel, or Seyfriedin too, you know, like they say too, we just need to be able to harness more energy. When we talk in Bitcoin about energy, we talk about renewables, stranded and wasted energy sources. You know, it's a really big conversation, like you just said, but human progress means being able to harness more energy and use it too. And Bitcoin is exactly what gets us to the next level on the Kardashev scale.
100%, dude. I agree. I think it's a very, very promising future. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to it because of Bitcoin. Bitcoin really does fix this. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
software releases. The software releases are sponsored by CipherSafe. Check them out, cyphersafe.io. It is the best place to store your Bitcoin seed. Check out the Cypher Wheel, and the all-new Cypher Grid comes with the punch tool and the tamper-resistant wire. All right, we've got Sphinx Relay version 2.2.5 that was released. It is down below in the show notes. Guys, you know the deal. Rain or shine, we post unless we tell you. And we've got our audio-only episodes. Check them out. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, that was our show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. I also want to give a very special shout out to our awesome guest. You can give him a follow at Hodling Eric. We'll put his Twitter handle up so you can go give him a follow. He's definitely a fellow plebe. And of course, guys, if you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. And no, I already did that. But yeah, make sure to subscribe to Simply Bitcoin. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow, guys, for another episode.
Bitcoin encourages free markets. Opt out of the money prison.